Film Guy recaps here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The movie opens with India Stoker walking across an empty road and staring at some white and red flowers in a field on the other side of the road. She is wearing high stilettos and has stopped her car in the middle of the road. A police car is also parked behind her car, but the policeman is not present on the scene. India is a unique girl with heightened senses. According to her, she can see things farther than most people, and she can also clearly hear things that are very far away. This has made her more observant and mindful than anyone else she knows. She is a teenager on the cusp of adulthood, which means she is constantly discovering new things about herself. The scene now cuts to India running around in her backyard. Her family is wealthy and owns a large chunk of land around their house, which basically means that India's backyard is a huge and lush field full of dense foliage. She feels something on her foot, so she sits down. She takes off her children's saddle shoes and begins to inspect what is wrong. India discovers a bulging blister on her big toe and begins to pop it by using a pine needle she finds nearby in the grass. She doesn't even flinch and easily squeezes out all the pus from inside the blister. There are big round boulders in her garden, and she is looking around trying to find a hidden present from her father. Finally, she climbs a tree and finds her birthday present on one of the branches. Inside their classy living room, preparations were underway for India's 18th birthday. A beautiful cake with 18 candles on top is being covered by a maid as a woman is running. It looks like the family has received a phone call about an accident, and India's birthday celebration is being put on hold. India's mother, Evelyn Stoker, is trying to control her sobs while wearing complete funeral attire. India is also sitting beside her. Although she is not crying, she appears to be sulking and looking pensively at her father's coffin as the priest is giving a eulogy. We now learn that India's father, Richard Stoker, has passed away in a car accident on the day of India's 18th birthday. It was a shocking tragedy for a family that was the epitome of perfection and high standards. In the distance, India sees the mysterious silhouette of a man who is standing and silently observing the funeral proceedings. No one else seems to notice this man. Once back home from the funeral, India is sitting at the stool and practicing her piano playing. Evelyn asks India to go in the kitchen and help the maid with the food because the funeral guests will be arriving soon. Evelyn is aware of India's stubbornness towards her, and she asks India to not behave like this on their father's funeral day. In the kitchen, the maids are whispering about Richard's accident and sharing all the gory details. However, India can hear them clearly and she starts to get tense. As both the maids are chattering, the senior maid known as Mrs. McGarrick shows up. Both the maids stop their whispering and disperse. While this was happening, guests had arrived in the house to pay their respect for Richard Stoker. Out of all the people, one man's voice is most prominent to India. She doesn't know why, but she follows his voice. When India finally sees him, it's the same man who was watching the funeral from a distance. Evelyn is talking to the man very pragmatically, as she always does. As soon as Evelyn sees India, she invites her over and introduces the man as Uncle Charlie. Up until this point, India was completely unaware that she even had an uncle. India doesn't move. She stands there with her arms crossed and pensively stares at Charlie. Evelyn is embarrassed at her daughter's untoward behavior that is a direct contrast to her own eternal graciousness. Since India has a heightened sense of hearing, she hears from a distance that her mother didn't know about Charlie's existence either. Evelyn tells Charlie that Richard told her Charlie had passed away. India's gut feeling about Charlie is not good, and she is curious for answers. Finally, India and Charlie have a face-to-face interaction on the staircase. Charlie claims that he is sorry for Richard's death. India retorts by telling Charlie that it's his loss too. India is clever, but he is not smitten. He asks India's permission to stay at the house for a while. The next day, India is frolicking about in the garden when she sees Richard and Mrs. McGarrick arguing in the kitchen. Mrs. McGarrick is telling Richard that she did everything he asked for. She tells him that she has helped for a long time and now she is tired of him. The plot thickens and India is even more curious now. What is this secret pact between Richard and Mrs. McGarrick? Evelyn wakes up later in the afternoon looking crusty and dirty. She puts on a robe and comes downstairs looking for Mrs. McGarrick, but she is nowhere to be seen. Evelyn and India have an unpleasant conversation. Evelyn suggests that they go out with Charlie and have a fun day, which makes India even more upset because Evelyn doesn't seem sad about Richard's death. Upon India's refusal, Evelyn and Charlie go out alone in Richard's convertible. India notices that her mother is being overly friendly with Charlie right off the bat. At dinner, Charlie has prepared a decadent meal with rare red meat, along with fancy accoutrements just like an expensive restaurant. He claims he learned to cook like this in France from a Michelin star chef. The dinner is awkward and full of tension between India and Evelyn. India finally asks her mother why she never told her about Charlie. Evelyn retorts by saying she barely knew about him herself. She says Charlie has been traveling all around Europe his entire life. Evelyn gets upset and leaves the dining room with her glass of wine. When she leaves, there is silence between India and her uncle. India is looking at the bottle of wine and reading the label with curiosity. Since she is 18 now, she can have alcohol, but she has never had it up until now. Charlie gives her the green signal and passes his glass over to her. India takes her very first sips of the intoxicant from Richard. This symbolizes how their relationship will develop over the coming months. Every day, Charlie starts to show up at India's school to pick her up in Richard's convertible. India refuses the offer every day and chooses to either take the bus or walk home. Charlie wants to be friends, but India is doing her best to thwart all his advances. One day, Auntie Jin decides to visit uninvited. Evelyn is surprised and also annoyed because she never got along with Auntie Jin. They think Auntie Jin is visiting casually, but she has been informed about Charlie's presence in the Stoker house, and she is there to share some information with Evelyn. They make small talk over dinner, but once Charlie leaves the room, Auntie Jin tries to have a private talk with Evelyn about Charlie living in the house with her. Evelyn becomes instantly defensive and thinks she is being accused of having an affair. Charlie comes back into the room and it becomes impossible for Auntie Jin to share the information she wanted to. When Evelyn tells Auntie Jin that Charlie has taken time away from Europe to be at the Stoker house, Auntie Jin is extremely shocked because she knows it is a lie. They don't invite her to spend the night and call a taxi to take Auntie Jin to a nearby hotel. Auntie Jin is scared because she knows that Charlie is aware of her intentions. She asks the driver to take her to a different hotel. She gives her number to India secretly and tells her to call. India agrees because she likes Auntie Jin very much. At this new hotel, Auntie Jin is disgusted by the filth and dirt. But she has to be here so Charlie can't find her. She seems to have misplaced her cell phone and needs it with her to receive India's call. She goes to the hotel phone booth and dials her cell phone so she can find where it is. While she is doing this, she gets startled to see Charlie's silhouette in the distance. Charlie feigns concern for her. He says that he had to call the cab company to get her location. He gives Auntie Jin her cell phone. He had it with him all this time to prevent any communication between India and Auntie Jin. Auntie Jin gets scared and starts to whimper as Charlie starts to take his belt off. He goes inside the phone booth and strangles Auntie Jin to death with the belt that he borrowed from Richard's closet. While Charlie is out on his murderous rendezvous, India goes down to the basement to get some ice cream. She gets scared to find Mrs. McGarrick's frozen dead body in the freezer. Charlie's motives now become clearer, and India doesn't know what to do. She is not scared, but she also knows she has to keep her mother safe from him. Realizing Charlie's truth has also unleashed something deep inside India. An unusual sense of inner rage and violence is driving her to do things she has never done before. While in the past she has always ignored her bullies at school, this time she stabs a bully with her pencil and draws blood out of his hand as he is about to punch her. The bully gets scared, and before the situation escalates, a fellow student named Whip Taylor dismisses the bullies and they all go away. He tries to talk to India and get friendly with her, but she also leaves. At home, India is sharpening the bloodied pencil. After creating a fresh and pointy new tip, she holds the pencil in the stabbing motion again and relishes the moment when she stabbed the bully. When she opens her pencil case, she imagines that she is opening the freezer again and seeing Mrs. McGarrick's dead body again. But this time, she is not fearful of Mrs. McGarrick's dead body. Instead, she is curious and somewhat amused, like a moth drawn to a light. It is evident that Charlie's inner sinister traits run deep in the Stoker family blood, and Charlie knows that these traits are buried deep inside India as well. He wants to bring them out. One evening, India wakes up from a nap and goes downstairs to hear romantic music playing in the dining room. She stands behind the door frame to observe what is happening. Charlie sees her and she gets frightened, but Charlie does nothing. Soon, they start dancing together. Charlie places his hands on Evelyn's back and she appears to be incredibly happy during this close encounter. Soon enough, they start to kiss passionately. India is now not in the house. She is in the garden and she is looking in from the window where there is a gap in the curtains. Charlie can see India watching them, so he puts on an even more of a show to awaken lustful desires in India. He starts to touch Evelyn's breasts and begins to undo her robe. India is extremely shocked and startled. From the gap in the curtains, Charlie sees her taking off her sweater and running away from home. All of Charlie's moves are working. He has fully revealed his evil motives to India, and India is not fully scared of him. Instead, India is discovering that deep down, she might share the same motives and desires as Charlie. India shows up to the diner where all of her school friends hang out at night. She spots Whip Taylor about to leave on his bike, and stops him to have a conversation. Instead of going inside the diner, India takes Whip to an abandoned playground in the nearby woods. As they are talking, India starts to run deeper into the woods and Whip starts to run behind her while laughing. Eventually, they begin to kiss and Whip thinks he is finally getting the chance to take India's virginity. India loses track of her senses and in a frenzy of sexual desire, she bites Whip's lower lip and draws blood. Whip is shocked but also aroused. He thinks India is a crazy girl and he is going to have wild sex with her in the woods. However, India is now resenting him and pushing him away. She comes back to her senses and tells him she wants to go back home. However, Whip is not ready to let her go. He starts forcing himself onto her and India punches him in the face to defend herself. Before she can walk away, Whip punches India in the gut and she falls to the ground. She screams as he begins to take his pants off. Whip doesn't see that Charlie is approaching from behind him to rescue India. Before Whip can take off his underwear, Charlie restricts him from the back with a belt and throws him to the ground. Charlie immobilizes Whip by tying his legs with the same belt from Richard's closet that he used to strangle Auntie Jin. India begins to kick Whip mercilessly as Charlie watches with pride. The scene now cuts to India and Charlie peacefully driving home. Once they are home, India goes into her bathroom and starts to take off all of her muddy clothes. She gets naked and starts to take a hot shower. In the shower, she begins to touch herself for the very first time in her life. As she touches herself, she begins to recall what actually happened in the woods. We now see that as Whip pushed India to the ground and got on top of her, Uncle Charlie put Richard's belt around his neck and pulled it back with force till Whip's neck cracked and he died on top of India. She thinks back to how she was relishing the moments when Whip was being strangled by the belt, and she continues to pleasure herself with her hand. While doing this, she is sobbing, as she is overcome with a myriad of emotions and feelings. This is a time of immense change in India's life. She is stepping out of her childlike innocence and stepping into the malevolent desires that were hidden deep inside her. Those hidden desires have now fully manifested themselves and they are now wreaking havoc on India. Finally, thinking about the moment when Whip's neck snaps and he dies, India climaxes in the shower as a sense of relief and euphoria take over her body. We now see that Charlie brought Whip's body home and buried it underneath the giant boulders in the garden. While Charlie is busy digging a hole for Whip's body, India comes to the realization that the boulders are there for a reason. She dials Auntie Jin's number and her suspicions are confirmed when she hears Auntie Jin's ringtone from underneath the ground. She now knows that Charlie not only murdered Mrs. McGarrick and Whip, he also murdered Auntie Jin. This is when Charlie confesses everything to India. Charlie tells her that when he was a young boy, he murdered his younger brother Jonathan by burying him in a deep well of sand in their backyard. After that, Charlie was sent to a juvenile asylum for 20 years. All the letters he wrote to India from different locations in the world were actually all written from the asylum. Somehow, Charlie knew that India was just like him. On India's 18th birthday, Charlie had completed his 20 years in the asylum. Richard had gone there to bring Charlie home and introduce him to Evelyn and India on India's birthday party. We now understand that on India's 18th birthday, Richard didn't die of a car accident, instead he was murdered by Charlie and Charlie came home to take his place in the family. He wanted India all to himself as he had written letters to her his entire life. One night during a vulnerable moment, Evelyn finally lets all her pent-up emotions out and lashes out at India. She shares all of her life's deepest regrets and sorrows, and claims that she doesn't even know India that well. Evelyn is now sensing that there is something sinister about Charlie, and that India also has similar qualities, hence their closeness. After this exchange with India, Evelyn invites Charlie up to her room to have a discussion. Before going up, Charlie tells India to pack a bag and be prepared to leave shortly. India doesn't fully know what is about to happen, so she just sits there and waits. Evelyn thinks that Charlie is about to take India's life. She says she won't allow this to happen. Evelyn tells him that she has figured everything out. She knows that Charlie killed Richard and Auntie Jen. Charlie begins to menacingly walk around her. She is scared, but she tells him to kill her and leave India alone. Evelyn thinks that Charlie wants to kill India, but she doesn't fully know what moments India and Charlie have shared together. Evelyn is confused when Charlie starts talking about India and himself living alone in the house together. She thought Charlie was attracted to her, but she now starts to understand that it is the other way around, and that Charlie is actually attracted to India. Charlie wants Evelyn to let her guard down, so he begins to kiss her. He throws her on the bed and begins to kiss her in order to subdue her. Meanwhile, India is packing the bags. While they are kissing, he flips her and throws her on the ground. With a menacing look on his face, he yells at India to come look at what he is doing. He takes off his belt and begins to strangle Evelyn just like he did to Whip Taylor in the woods. Evelyn's face is turning red as she gags and struggles to breathe. India moves closer to the room as Charlie keeps calling her. But, instead of carrying the bags, she is carrying her hunting gun. India takes out her gun and in a brief moment, she takes a perfect aim right on Charlie's forehead. The bullet passes through his head and penetrates the glass window. Warm blood is splattered on the walls as Evelyn is still writhing on the floor. She sits up and sees Charlie taking his last breaths on the floor. India leans in closer to feel the pulse on his neck. As she sits back up, half of her face is covered in Charlie's blood. Evelyn is in a state of shock and has no words in her mouth. The next morning, Charlie's body has been dragged out of the house and buried underneath the boulders where other bodies were hidden. While Evelyn is asleep inside, India gets dressed and packs her bags to go live an independent life in New York. She also has some garden shears in the car. As she is driving down the road, she is stopped by the town sheriff for driving fast. This is the scene we saw in the opening of the movie. As the sheriff walks up to India's car to ask questions, India stabs him in the neck with the garden shears. The sheriff crawls into the field across the road. We now see that the white and red flowers shown in the opening of the film are actually just white, and the red color comes from splatters of the sheriff's blood. We also see that India is wearing her father's belt around her skirt. It is the same belt that Charlie used to conduct all those murders. India is now finally a free adult and she is going to New York to live life on her own terms, instead of being a subordinate to Charlie. This is where the movie ends. To watch more awesome and thought-provoking movie recaps, please subscribe to Film Guy Recaps. Don't forget to like this video and tell us in the comments which movie you want to see next. Goodbye for now.